They drove past the property for years, never once thought about buying it. Then the price dropped. They walked through the door, and everything changed, again. That's Chase Morrill, the contractor behind Maine Cabin Masters, the show that started as a cable oddity on DIY Network and quietly became one of the most loyal fan bases in renovation television. And now, entering their 13th season with a new spin-off set to air this summer and a bed and breakfast opening its doors in July. The crew has finally answered the questions fans have been asking for years about the future of the show, about what comes next, and about what this team is actually building. By the time this video ends, you'll understand why Maine Cabin Masters didn't just survive, and why what they're doing right now is the most ambitious chapter they've ever attempted. Chase Morrill didn't apply for television out of ambition. That's the part the origin story usually skips. He was born on Christmas Day, 1977, in Augusta, Maine, a 10th-generation Mainer in the fullest sense. His father was a builder, his grandfather was a civil engineer. His grandmother did the plumbing on the family camp, while his grandfather handled the electrical. Chase has said one of his earliest memories is sitting on a rough-cut floor deck with a group of cousins between the ages of 5 and 10, straightening nails that had been pulled from the original structure. That was the family's definition of weekend work. He went on to study community planning at the College of the Atlantic in Bar Harbor, a small, unconventional school known for hands-on environmental learning. While he was there, he developed a habit that stayed with him, going through what other people threw out, old boards pulled from cabin exteriors, weathered and gray, that still had life in them. He kept a barn full of salvaged materials before the television show ever existed. After college, he and his college roommate co-founded a construction company called Waterways, focused on finding abandoned properties, renovating them, and reselling them. He later built out the crew that would become the Maine Cabin Masters team, his sister Ashley as designer, her husband Ryan Eldridge as carpenter, and childhood friends Matt Dixie Dix and Jared Jedi Baker as master carpenters. None of them had websites. Chase didn't have social media. Potential clients tracked him down through his wife. When a production company came looking for a Maine crew that specialized in renovating old camps and salvaging as much material as possible, Chase applied out of curiosity, not marketing potential. That distinction matters because it explains everything that came after. And here's what the comments kept asking. And here's the answer they never got, until now. The pilot was filmed at a pondside camp in Vassalboro, Maine. Nothing glamorous, no production budget that would strain belief. Just a crew of Mainers doing what they'd been doing for years, filmed by a production company that believed it was worth watching. Maine Cabin Masters debuted on January 5th, 2017, on DIY Network. Season 1 had 10 episodes. By Season 3, it was DIY's highest-rated program, pulling more than 3.5 million viewers per episode. That number is worth sitting with. A show about a guy and his friends fixing old cabins in rural Maine, with no manufactured romance, no staged conflict, no dramatic elimination, pulling audiences that most cable renovation shows couldn't touch. The reason fans give consistently, when you look at the comment sections and the fan forums, is that the show felt real. The crew actually knew each other. The cabins had actual histories. The budgets were tight in ways that reflected what real people could afford. Ashley's design choices leaned into salvage materials, using the old stuff rather than sending it to the landfill. Chase's instinct to see value where other people saw rot ran through every project. What most casual viewers don't know is that the format wasn't always as relaxed as it became. The early seasons on DIY Network had more producer-driven conflict built into the structure, the kind of manufactured tension that cable renovation shows use to hold attention. Over time, that fell away. The version of the show that fans describe as the reason they keep watching, low drama, craft-focused, built around genuine friendship, emerged gradually. It wasn't what anyone planned. It was what the audience chose. When Magnolia Network, Chip and Joanna Gaines' channel, took over DIY Network in 2022, the transition was seamless. The ethos Gaines had built around family, craft, and authenticity matched what Maine Cabin Masters had already been doing for 5 years, without anyone designing it that way. Most people who know this story stop here, but the real story starts right now. The question Chase and Sarah Morrill had asked themselves for years was a simple one: why wait? They had always talked about buying an old Italian home and renovating it. Someday, once they retired, once the kids were grown, once the timing was right. Chase has described it in interviews as a recurring conversation, something they kept circling back to. Then they started seeing news coverage of Italian villages selling properties for €1, trying to attract foreign buyers and reverse decades of rural depopulation. That coverage made the abstract concrete. In 2023, Chase and Sarah bought a property in the Molise region of Italy, a remote, largely overlooked area that locals sometimes call the region that does not exist. Known for being off every tourist map, the property cost approximately $97,000. What that price bought was a former stable, structurally sound in places, and essentially a ruin in others, sitting on a hill with what the production would later describe as breathtaking views. The crew came with him: Ashley, Ryan, Dixie, Jedi, all of them. Chase told House Beautiful directly, "Life is uncertain, and we did not want to wait until retirement to get started. We all agreed that this incredible opportunity to do this now, together as a family, was worth the risks and challenges." The 6-episode spin-off, Maine Cabin Masters, Building Italy, premiered on Magnolia Network on June 17, 2024. It documented not just the renovation but Chase and Sarah's 4 teenagers working alongside the crew, navigating Italian seismic regulations that required local contractors to take the lead on structural work, sourcing materials from a country where none of them spoke the language, and converting animal stables into living space. Fan reception was split. Viewers who appreciated the change of scenery and the chance to see Chase's kids as active participants rather than background figures responded warmly. Others were vocal about missing Maine, the landscape, the camps, the specific culture of the Pine Tree State that had always been the show's anchor. Some found the aesthetic choices jarring. The old-world stone and Italian countryside was beautiful, but it wasn't what they'd come for. Chase addressed it directly. The crew's focus remains on Maine, the 207 area code, as he put it. The Italy property is now a private family vacation home. No further international seasons have been announced, and that's when the decision was made. The one nobody around her saw coming. February 1st, 2025, is a date the Maine Cabin Masters community doesn't talk about the way they talk about cabin reveals or season premieres. It doesn't fit the usual rhythm of the show's news cycle, but it belongs in this story. Jenna Dix, wife of cast member Matt "Dixie" Dix, passed away unexpectedly that day at Maine Medical Center in Portland, with her family by her side. She was 48. No cause of death was disclosed. Jenna and Dixie had met in 2000, the same year she earned her bachelor's degree in nursing from St. Anselm College in New Hampshire. They married the following year, on September 27, 2001, and were together for more than 23 years. She went on to earn a master's degree in nursing from Purdue University in 2018 and had been working as a nurse practitioner at Harold Alphons Center and Maine Health Franklin Memorial Hospital. The show's official Instagram announced her passing 4 days later. The statement read, "Jenna was a huge part of the Maine Cabin Masters family and will be missed tremendously." Ryan Eldridge's tribute was more personal. He wrote, "We were born on the same day 2 years apart. Our parents were best friends. You married my best friend. You have been a big part of my life since day one and left this world way too soon, but you sure did make a mark in your short time." Jenna, according to her obituary, was happiest when she was up to camp, surrounded by family and friends, listening to music, watching the weather come in off the water. The very world this show lives in was hers too. Dixie remained part of the crew. Season 12 went forward. The show continued. And if you think that was surprising, stay with me, because this next part is why the whole story matters. When Season 12 wrapped on March 9, 2026, something unusual happened. Nothing. No announcement, no renewal, no press release from Magnolia Network. Industry tracking sites updated their status to "Fate to be determined." The show had produced 177 episodes across 12 seasons. It had survived a network transition. It had survived an EPA settlement in 2022, a $16,500 penalty tied to failures in LEED-safe renovation certification, which resulted in 3 educational episodes and a podcast special on LEED safety, with the crew fully compliant by the time Season 11 aired. It had survived the Italy experiment and come home to Maine. And then it went quiet. Fans noticed. The comment sections on YouTube and fan communities on Reddit filled up with the same questions they'd been building for months. Is the show done? Is Magnolia moving on? Is Chase stepping back? Why hasn't there been an announcement? Season 12 had been strong by the show's standards. 10 episodes, including a storm-damaged cabin rebuild in Monmouth, a ski shack renovation for a local high school, and a generational camp restoration for a 92-year-old homeowner on a private island in Maine. The work was still there. The crew was still intact. But television doesn't run on quality alone, and the audience knew that. The silence lasted long enough that it started to feel like an answer. What happened next is the reason this story spread across the internet. Season 13 of Maine Cabin Masters premiered on Magnolia Network on Monday, May 25, 2026, 1 week ago, at 9 p.m. Eastern. The opening episode is called Restoring an Island Legacy. Chase and the crew take on a lakeside cabin with off-grid constraints and island logistics, helping a homeowner honor her late husband while modernizing the property. The season runs to 5 episodes, finishing on June 29 with a finale in which the team builds a permanent home for a longtime subcontractor and his family. The core crew is intact: Chase, Ashley, Ryan, Dixie, Jedi. 13 seasons in, the same group that filmed a pilot at a pondside camp in Vassalboro in 2016 is still showing up for work. Ashley spoke to The Current Moment in a recent interview. She noted that her design team has grown, where once it was just Chase, Ryan, Dixie, and Jedi helping with aesthetic decisions, she now has roughly 5 people contributing on the design side. She also pointed to a shift she's seen in the audience. Viewers are gravitating back toward antique and salvaged materials. People who once wanted everything new are now interested in keeping the old stuff. The trend the show was built on, Chase's instinct to straighten a bent nail rather than throw it out, has caught up to mainstream taste. But the renewal confirmation wasn't the only answer fans got. One phone call, one conversation. That's all it took to change the direction of everything. The property in Monmouth, Maine, had been sitting on the market long enough that its price had dropped twice. Chase and Sarah Morrill had driven past it for years. It was a former bed and breakfast, a historic estate with good bones and years of neglect. "I didn't know that it had gone on the market," Sarah said in a recent interview with the Boston Globe. "We really weren't looking for a bed and breakfast. We're looking to get into the lodging space." But something about the walkthrough shifted the calculation. The more they looked, the more it made sense. What they are building, in real time, with reservations already booked for the beginning of July 2026, is called the Waters Run Bed and Breakfast, a 12-room property in Monmouth, including newly built cabins added to the original structure, blending what Sarah describes as farmhouse charm with rustic luxury. It sits roughly 15 minutes from the Morrill family home in central Maine. A new Magnolia spin-off, Maine Cabin Masters, All In, is set to air this summer. It follows Chase and Sarah as they race to get the property open before their first guests arrive. A deadline Chase described in a recent interview as about as real as you can get. His daughter is home from college and working on the project. The whole family is involved, the same way it's always been. The Woodshed restaurant and event venue, the Kennebec Cabin Company retail store in Manchester, the Italy property, the Waters Run B&B, the business Chase built from a construction company without a website, has grown into something that generates revenue whether or not a camera is rolling. That's a different kind of stability than a television renewal provides. It means the show, if it ends, isn't the last chapter. And if it continues, it's because the work is worth doing, not because the Morrills need the network. Here's what the comments kept asking, and here's the answer they never got, until now. The question fans were really asking, underneath the "is it renewed" posts and the speculation about whether the Italy spin-off had damaged the brand, was a simpler one. Did this show stay what we thought it was? The answer is yes. Chase Morrill spent the first 40 years of his life building things in a state most television executives would have considered a hard sell. Rural Maine, old camps, salvaged materials, a crew of childhood friends who never had social media strategies or brand deals or managers. The show found its audience not because it was packaged correctly, but because it reflected something real, the kind of work that gets done in places where showing up matters more than showing off. 13 seasons in, the crew is renovating a lakeside cabin for a woman honoring her late husband. They are racing to open an inn before the first guests arrive in July. They are rebuilding the family camp of a longtime subcontractor who spent years helping build other people's dreams. The work hasn't changed. The people haven't changed. That's not nothing. In a television landscape where most shows either flame out in 3 seasons or get stripped down until they're unrecognizable, Maine Cabin Masters kept the thing that made it work and let everything else adjust around it. The Waters Run Bed and Breakfast opens this summer. Season 13 is airing now. And if you want to know what staying true to where you came from actually looks like in practice, 13 seasons later, it looks exactly like this. Do you think Chase made the right call expanding into a bed and breakfast while the show is still on air? Or is building a business outside of television the smartest thing he could have done? Let me know below.